history of chess, one name stands out as a symbol of brilliance, mastery, and controversy. Robert James Fischer, better known as Bobby Fischer. Born in 1943 in Chicago and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Fischer's life was as complex and enigmatic as the game he mastered. Today we explore the extraordinary journey of a man who became a world champion only to disappear from the world stage, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire and perplex the chess community.
Bobby Fischer is an isolated man.
Bobby Fischer's a strange man. People think that there's something wrong with the man.
This symbolically says the king is dead.
Great Bobby Fischer.
I think it came gradually,
Like a child.
but then
Social life is a night.
The most arrogant man you're ever likely to meet.
Bobby Fischer was born on March 9, 1943 into a world that was just beginning to feel the tremors of a global conflict. His father Hans Gerhard Fischer, a German biophysicist, had left the family early on, leaving his mother Regina to raise Bobby and his sister Joan in Brooklyn, New York. Regina was an intellectually driven woman, a physician and a teacher who fostered a love of learning in her children. It was Joan, however, who introduced Bobby to the game that would consume his life: chess. At the age of 6, Bobby received a simple chess set as a gift from Joan. From that moment on, the game became his obsession. He spent hours, days, weeks absorbed in chess, studying every move, every strategy. His mother, recognizing his passion, supported him by enrolling him in the Brooklyn Chess Club. Fischer's first mentor, Carmen Nigro, was astounded by the young boy's prodigious talent. By the age of 12, Fischer had joined the Manhattan Chess Club, one of the most prestigious chess clubs in the country. Bobby Fischer's ascent in the chess was nothing short of meteoric. At just 13 years old, he played a match that would go down in history as the game of the century. It was October 1956 and Fischer was up against Donald Bryan, one of the top players in the United States. The game held at the Marshall Chess Club in New York started conventionally enough, but soon turned into a masterpiece of tactical brilliance. Fischer, playing black, sacrificed his queen on the 17th move, a seemingly reckless decision that left the spectators stunned. However, what followed was a display of strategic genius as Fischer's pieces, like a well-coordinated army, gradually cornered Bryan's king. The game ended with Fischer's victory, earning him a place in chess lore. This was not just the victory of a boy wonder, it was the arrival of a new force in the world of chess. Fischer's victory against Bryan was just the beginning. In 1958, at the tender age of 15, he became the youngest grandmaster in history, a record that stood for decades. His achievement was all the more remarkable considering the era's lack of resources and formal training in the United States. Fischer's talent was raw, his understanding of the game almost instinctual. Chess world took notice and Fischer became a sensation not just in the US but globally. His victories in international tournaments earned him a reputation as formidable player. He was known for his deep concentration, his ability to calculate several moves ahead, and his unorthodox strategies that often left his opponents baffled. But Fischer was not just another chess prodigy, he was a perfectionist, obsessed with the idea of absolute mastery. The 1960s were a time of great tension in the world, with the Cold War casting a long shadow over international relations.
Between two great superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. It would not be a conventional war, with the two sides never directly fighting. Instead, it would be an ideological battle between communism and capitalism, the East versus the West, and the resulting struggle for ideological influence and power.
Chess, often seen as a metaphor for strategic thinking and intellectual power, became another battleground in this ideological conflict. The Soviet Union had long dominated the chess world, producing grandmasters at an unprecedented rate, thanks to state-sponsored programs. The US, in contrast, had only a handful of players competing at the highest levels. Bobby Fischer emerged as America's greatest hope to challenge Soviet supremacy. His rivalry with the Soviet chess establishment was not just about chess. It was seen as a microcosm of the Cold War itself. Fischer's matches against Soviet grandmasters were intentionally scrutinized not just by chess enthusiasts but by political observers as well. Each victory was a symbolic triumph for the West, and each loss was a reminder of the Soviet Union intellectual prowess. Fischer, however, was largely indifferent to the political implications of his matches. For him, chess was not a tool for ideological battles, it was a deeply personal pursuit. He ought to elevate the game to an art form, constantly refining his techniques and strategies. His preparation for each match was meticulous, often studying his opponent's game for weeks or even months before a tournament. By the late 1960s, Fischer had established himself as the leading contender for the World Chess Championship. However, his path to the title was fraught with challenges. Fischer was known for his uncompromising nature both on and off the board. He demanded better conditions for players, higher prize money, and changes in the tournament formats. His demands often led to confrontations with chess organizers and officials, resulting in his withdrawal from several tournaments. Despite these setbacks, Fischer's skill on the board remained unparalleled. In 1970, he made an impressive return to the international chess scene by winning the interzonal tournament in Palma de Mallorca with a record-breaking score. This victory secured him a place in the candidates matches, the final stage before challenging the reigning world champion. Candidates matches of 1971 were nothing short of a spectacle. Fischer swept through his opponents with unprecedented ease, defeating grandmasters such as Mark Taimanov, Bent Larsen, and Tigran Petrosyan. His performance was so dominant that he won 20 consecutive games, an achievement that remains unmatched in the history of chess. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown, Fischer vs Boris Spassky, the reigning world champion in Iceland. The 1972 World Chess Championship between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky is often referred to as the match of the century. Held in Iceland, the match was more than just a contest between two chess players. It was a Cold War confrontation, a battle between East and West, capitalism and communism. The world watched with bated breath as Fischer and Spassky faced off in a series of games that would determine not just the world champion but the ideological victor in a divided world.
Do you worry about Spassky?
Not overly. I mean, he's a little better, I think, than the other Russians I've taken on in this series. But we were just the other day looking through that his games from the Moscow event, that Alekhine tournament, and they were atrocious games.
The match began on July 11, 1972 and was immediately marked by tension and drama. Fischer, who had made several demands regarding the playing conditions, arrived late for the first game and subsequently lost.
There's his first move, one knight, king, bishop, 3. Very non-committal.
Now watch, see Fischer turn around here?
Yeah.
He's checking to see that...
He then forfeited the second game due to his refusal to play under what he considered unfavorable conditions. At this point, it seemed that Fischer was on the brink of forfeiting the entire match. However, he returned to the board for the third game and won decisively, setting the tone for the rest of the match. Over the course of the next few weeks, Fischer played some of the finest chess of his career. His victory in the sixth game is often hailed as one of the greatest games ever played in the World Championship history. Fischer's unique style, characterized by his deep strategic understanding and relentless pursuit of perfection, proved too much for Spassky. On September 1, 1972, Fischer won the match, becoming the 11th World Chess Champion and the first American to hold the title. Bobby Fischer's victory in Iceland was hailed as a triumph for the United States and a personal vindication for Fischer, who had long sought recognition as the greatest chess player in the world. However, the victory was also marked as the beginning of Fischer's withdrawal from competitive chess and public life. The pressure and attention that came with being the world champion weighed heavily on Fischer, who was never comfortable in the limelight. In 1975, Fischer was scheduled to defend the title against Anatoly Karpov, a rising star in the Soviet chess world. However, Fischer made a series of demands that the World Chess Federation found unacceptable, including changes to the match format that would heavily favor the reigning world champion. When FIDE refused to meet his demands, Fischer forfeited the title, effectively retiring from professional chess. For the next 2 decades, Fischer lived in relative obscurity, moving between various countries and avoiding public appearances. His reclusive behavior and erratic statements only added to this mystique, but they also alienated him from the chess community. Fischer's later years were marked by a series of legal troubles and controversial statements that further tarnished his legacy. Bobby Fischer resurfaced in 1992 for a match against Boris Spassky held in Yugoslavia. The match, billed as a return to the glory days of 1972 championship, was overshadowed by political controversy as the United States had imposed sanctions on Yugoslavia due to the ongoing Balkan conflict. Fischer's decision to play in the defiance of these sanctions led to a warrant for his arrest, and he never returned to the United States. The match itself was a shadow of their previous encounter, with Fischer winning decisively but failing to recapture the magic of their earlier games. After the match, Fischer once again retreated into seclusion, living in Hungary, the Philippines, Japan, and eventually Iceland, where he was granted citizenship in 2005.
Start to hate chess and did it come suddenly? It came gradually, but then at a certain point, I mean, I was hating it, but I didn't know it, you know what I mean? Because I was still trying to make it work. You know?
Bobby Fischer passed away on January 17, 2008 in the same city where he had achieved his greatest triumph, the World Chess Champion. He was 64 years old, the same number of squares on a chessboard. Fischer's legacy is a complex one. He was undoubtedly one of the greatest chess players of all time, a genius whose understanding of the game was unparalleled. His contributions to chess, including his advocacy for better playing conditions and his innovative strategies, have had a lasting impact on the sport. However, Fischer's life was also marked by controversy and a personal turmoil. His refusal to defend his title, his reclusive behavior, and his inflammatory statements in later years have left a cloud over his legacy. Despite this, Fischer's influence on the game of chess is undeniable. He inspired a generation of players and brought the game into a global spotlight. Bobby Fischer was a man of contradictions, a prodigy who became a world champion, a public figure who shunned the spotlight, a genius whose brilliance was often overshadowed by his eccentricities. His life was as complex and enigmatic as the game he mastered. Fischer once said, "Chess is life," and indeed for Bobby Fischer, the two were inseparable. As we reflect on his life and legacy, we are reminded of the fine line between genius and madness, and the price that is often paid for greatness.
Chess is a great game. A game and a sport for the mind.
Thanks everyone for staying till the end. Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to Chessy for more videos like this.